that there are different types of people in this world and everybody have a habit of communicating differently. For example, my boss comes and pats me on my back. That means he's appreciating me for some work. For example, one of my colleague gives me a push. That means he might not like me. वो मुझे पसंद नहीं करता है, शायद वो उनसे दूर रहना चाहता है या कुछ रिटेलिएट करना चाहता है. So non-verbal communication speaks a lot about everybody's personality also. And haptics is an important part of it, the way we touch. For example, when you go for a handshake, when you have a firm handshake, that means you are very confident. Again, that is a part of haptics. Why? Because you are having a touch. When you have a loose handshake like this, at times it communicates that you are not confident enough. So touch, that is the language of non-verbal communication. Haptics again speaks a lot. And last but not the least, artifacts. Artifacts are the accessories that we wear, that we have with us. It can be our watch, it can be what we wear, it can be our tattoos, it can be each and everything that we wear on ourselves, on our bodies. And whatever we wear, the way we wear definitely communicates the way we are. It is very important to understand that in the field of business communication, in the field of commercial communication, in the field of managerial communication, when you are working as a corporate executive, ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि आप business communication को बहुत ध्यान से समझें. जब आप किसी सेक्टर में काम कर रहे हैं जहाँ पे communication एक बहुत important role play करता है, try to have minimum artifacts with you. It means आप कोशिश कीजिए कि आपके साथ minimum artifacts हो. Because the more artifacts you have, the more colorful things you have speaks a lot about you. So do not give a reason anyone to judge you, and try to carry minimum artifacts, because artifacts might hamper the communication process. We'll go on with the next slide. Kinesics. We'll come to know about kinesics in details. Kinesics, as we can see on the slide, kinesics is the interpretation of body motion, communication, such as facial expressions. Facial expressions का मतलब है हमारा face कैसा है, हम कैसे expressions देते हैं, and gestures, non-verbal behavior related to the movement of any part of the body or the body as a whole. I would like to first talk about gestures. There are three main types of gestures: adapters, emblems and illustrators, जिसके बारे में हम आने वाली स्लाइड में पढ़ेंगे. हैंड मूवमेंट्स एंड पोस्चर्स के बारे में पहले बता दूं. दे आर ऑफन यूज टू एक्नॉलेज अदर्स एंड कम्युनिकेट इंटरेस्ट और अटेंटिवनेस. इसका मतलब ये है कि हम जब किसी को सुनते हैं और हम उसे एक्नॉलेज करते हैं तो हम हमारा सिर हिलाते हैं. दैट इज़ नथिंग बट हेड मूवमेंट, अ पार्ट ऑफ बॉडी लैंग्वेज, अ पार्ट ऑफ काइनेसिक्स. In terms of head movements, a head nod is a universal sign of acknowledgement in cultures where the formal bow is no longer used as a greeting. In these cases, the head nod essentially serves as an abbreviated bow. An innate and universal head movement is the head shake back and forth to signal no. There are four general human postures, that is standing, sitting, squatting and lying down. I'll move on with the next part of kinesics, that is gestures. Gestures is communicating through the movement of body and arms. According to Ekman and Friesman 1969 identified 5 types of gestures: emblems, illustrators, affect displays, regulators and adapters. I would like to speak first about adapters. Adapters are touching behaviors and movements that indicate internal states typically related to arousal. Adapters can be targeted toward the self, objects or others. In regular social situations, adapters results from uneasiness, anxiety or a general cause that we are not in control of our surroundings. Many of us subconsciously click pens, shake our legs or engage in other adapters during classes, meetings or while waiting as a way to do something with an excess energy. Common self-touching behaviors like scratching, twirling hair or fidgeting with fingers are considered as self-adapters. Some self-adapters manifest internally as coughs or throat-clearing sounds. Smartphones have become common object adapters, as people can fiddle with their phones to help ease anxiety. Finally, as noted, other adapters are more common in social situations than in public speaking situations given the speaker's distance from audience members. Other adapters involve adjusting or grooming others, similar to how primates like. So this is what the kinesics is all about. Under kinesics, we have been talking about gestures, and under gestures, we have been talking about adapters. What we have learned through adapters, that adapters are nothing but something we use consciously, semi-consciously to satisfy our anxiety. We keep fiddling with our fingers, with our nails, with our mobile phones, with our accessories, and that is nothing but the adapters. The second comes emblems. Emblems are gestures that have a specified agreed on meaning. These are still different from the signs used hearing impaired people or others who communicate using American Sign Language. Even though they have a generally agreed on meaning, they are not part of a formal sign system like ASL that is explicitly taught to a group of people. Emblems are gestures that have a specific meaning. In United States, a thumbs up can mean I need a ride or okay. Next comes illustrators. Illustrators are the most common type of gestures and are used to illustrate the verbal message they accompany. For example, you might use hand gestures to indicate the size or shape of an object. Unlike emblems, illustrators do not typically have meaning on their own and are used more subconsciously than emblems. These largely involuntarily and seemingly natural gestures flow from us and we speak but vary in terms of intensity and frequency based on context. We'll move on with the next part of kinesics. That is, we'll move on with the next part of nonverbal communication. And before talking about the nonverbal communication, let me tell you about the facial signals, which is the last part of kinesics now. When we communicate with others, we look mostly at their face. This is not a coincidence, as many signals are sent with the 90 odd muscles in the face. The face, the way the head tilts also changes the message. It means the way we move our head talks about the facial signals. Proxemics. Edward T. Hall, the cultural anthropologist who coined the term in 1963, defined proxemics as the interrelated observations and theories of man's use of space as a specialized elaboration of culture. Hall described the interpersonal distances of men, the relative distances between people, in 4 zones, that is intimate space, personal space, social space, and public space. We can see a detailed structure over here about the different spaces. I would like to speak more about proxemics and distances. Proxemics refers to the study of how space and distance influence communication. We only need look at the ways in which space shows up in common metaphors to see that space, communication, and relationships are closely related. For example, when we are content with and attracted to someone, we say we are close to him or her. When we lose connection with someone, we may say that he or she is distant. In general, space influences how people communicate and behave. Smaller spaces with a high density of people often lead to breach of our personal space bubbles. If this is a setting in which this type of density expected beforehand, like a crowded concert or a train during a rush hour, then we make various communicative adjustments to manage the space issue. Unexpected breaches of personal space can lead to negative reactions, especially if we feel that someone has violated our space voluntarily, meaning that a crowding situation didn't force them into our space. Proxemic distances. We all have varying definitions what our personal space is, and these definitions are contextual and depend on the situation and relationship. Scholars have identified 4 zones, which are public, social, personal, and intimate distance. We can see how these zones relate to each other and to individual. As we can see on this slide, distance is written. The closest is the first one, that is the intimate zone. You might find two good friends being into intimate zone, that is a close face less than 6 inches, far face is 6 to 18 inches. Next comes personal distance for interactions among good friends or family, that is close face 1.5 to 2.5 feet, far face 2.5 to 4 feet. Social distance for interactions among acquaintances means known people, close face 4 to 7 feet, far face 7 to 12 feet. Public distance used for public speaking, close face 12 to 25 feet, far face 25 feet or more. I would like to speak more on this. Public and social zones refer to the zones that we have seen as mentioned over here. This is the least personal zone of the 4 zones and would typically be used when a person is engaging in a formal speech and is removed from the audience to allow the audience to see, or when a high profile or a person like a celebrity or executive maintains such a distance as a sign of power or safety or security reasons. I would like to talk about the third last, that is the social space. It is typically in the context of a professional or casual interaction, but not intimate or public. This distance is preferred in many professional settings because it reduces the suspicion for impropriety. The expression keeping someone at arm's length means that someone is kept out of personal space and kept in the social or professional space. It is also possible to have people in the outer portion to our social zone but not feel obligated to interact with them. But when people come much closer than what is mentioned in our slide, we often feel obligated. In many typical sized classrooms, many of our audience or much of our audience for a speech will actually be in the social zones rather than in the public zone, which is actually beneficial because it helps you to establish a better connection with the audience. Last but not the least, that is the first one, personal space. Personal space. Personal and intimate zone refers to the space that starts at our physical body and extends to the distance measured or shown in the slide. Even though we are getting closer to the physical body of any other person, we may use verbal communication at this point to signal that our presence in this zone is friendly and not intimate. Even people who know each other could be uncomfortable spending too much time in this zone unnecessarily. We can easily touch the other person as we can talk to them, briefly placing a hand on his or her arm, or engaging other light social touching that facilitates conversation, self-disclosure and feeling of closeness. Intimate space, that is the first one that can be seen in the slide. We need regular human contact that isn't just verbal but also physical. Being close to someone and feeling their physical presence can be very comforting when words fail. These are called social norms regarding the amount of this type of closeness that can be displayed. We would like to move on to the next form, that is the chronemics. Chronemics talks about time. Chronemics is the study of the role of time in communication. It is one of the several subcategories of study of nonverbal communication. Under chronemics, there are two types. First is a monochronic. A monochronic time system means that things are done one at a time and time is segmented into precise small units. Under this time, we can see the examples that people do one job at a time. Many people say that I can do one thing at a time and I cannot handle a lot of things at a time. A polychronic time system. A polychronic is exactly opposite to monochronic. A polychronic time system is a system where several things can be done at once and wider view of time is exhibited and time is perceived in large fluid sections. Chronemics has been used in a lot of places. Chronemics can be briefly and generally defined as the study of human tempo as it is related to human communication. More specifically, chronemics involves the study of both subjective and objective human tempos as they influence and they are independent with human behavior. Further, chronemics involves the study of human communication as it relates to interdependent and integrated levels of time experiencing. Previously, These interdependent and integrated levels have been outlined and discussed. Biological time, psychological time, social time, and cultural time. A number of classification systems exist in the literature of time. However, such systems are not applied to human interactions directly. Chronomics can be defined as the interrelated observations and theories of man's use of time. The way in which one perceives and values time, structures time, and reacts to time frames communication. Time perception plays a large role in the nonverbal communication process. Time perception includes punctuality, willingness to wait, and interactions. The use of time can affect lifestyle, daily agendas, speed of speech, movements, and how long people are willing to listen. Time can be used as an indicator of status. For example, in most companies, the boss can interrupt progress to hold an impromptu meeting in the middle of the work. Yet the average worker would have to make an appointment to see the boss. The way in which different cultures perceive time can influence communication as well. Cultures are sometimes considered monochronic or polychronic. So we are again getting back to monochronic. A monochronic time system means that things are done one at a time and time is segmented into precise small units. Under this system, the time is scheduled, arranged, and managed. The United States considers itself a monochronic society. The perception came about during the Industrial Revolution when factory life required the labor force to be on hand and in place at an appointed hour. Many Americans like to think that to them time is precious resource and not to be wasted or taken lightly. We buy time, we save time, we spend time, and we make time. Our time can be broken down into years, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds, and even milliseconds. We use time to structure both our daily lives and events that we are planning for the future. We have schedules that we must follow. We have appointments that we must follow. In short, whatever we have understood through chronomics is that time speaks a lot about a person's personality, a person's communication. As I've already given an example, a person who regularly comes on time is perceived to be a punctual person.